What would happen if Luffy were to fight the 12 Demon Moons from Demon Slayer? As you guys know, Gear 5 Luffy is an absolute menace. He is able to abuse laws of physics as naturally as he breathes, and you bet it's going to be terrifying when your opponent is always laughing in your face throughout the fight. Now, obviously, One Piece and Demon Slayer don't have the same kind of power scaling, but what do you think? Do the 12 Demon Moons, or at least the Upper Moon, stand a chance against our boy Luffy? Well then, let's find out. First, we're going to have Luffy go up against all the Lower Moons. I'm pretty sure as far as you guys are concerned, only 2 of them are relevant. We're talking about Rui and Enmu. Maybe also Kyogai. But hey, he was a fired man to begin with. Okay, so since Rui has string-based abilities, much like Doflamingo, he is basically just a weaker version of Doflamingo. Luffy is going to absolutely steamroll him. It doesn't even matter if his strings get a hold or not. Our boy's armament haki is way too strong by this point. It's a wash. The same thing would happen to the other Lower Moon and even Kyogai. I mean, what can Kyogai do? Luffy's Joy Boy heartbeat alone is going to overshadow Kyogai's drum-based abilities. Am I right? Or what? Then there is the strongest Lower Moon, Enmu. Enmu's abilities are kind of tricky because he can control his own flesh, but all Luffy needs to do is punch him with advanced armament haki and it's over. Who knows? Maybe Luffy wouldn't even have to fight the Lower Moon. Maybe his Conqueror's haki alone would be enough for these pushovers. Though there is an interesting dilemma, and I'm sure you guys must be wondering about it as well. Since Luffy doesn't use a sword, how is he going to literally end the lives of these demons? Well, as far as the Lower Moons go, even base Luffy is an overkill. They are so far beyond him, they aren't a threat even at full power. But then you have the Upper Moon demons. That's the important question. How would Luffy fare against the likes of Kokushibo, Doma, and Akaza? Though before we talk about the top 3 Upper Moons, let's get Daki, Gyutaro, Kaigaku, Gyoko, and Hantengu out of the way. First, we have Daki and Gyutaro. I know these 2 were pretty tricky opponents for Tanjiro and company, but for Luffy, nothing they do is going to work. I mean, nothing. Luffy would just grab Daki's floral sashes and wrap them around her for fun. Gyutaro can detach his core from himself all he wants, but the thing is, Luffy isn't even trying to kill them. He is just here to defeat the bad guys because they have been causing problems. The reason he just wraps Daki in her own sashes is because he simply found her annoying. As for Gyutaro, he would lash out at Luffy and shoot a potent beam of blood right at him. Luffy easily dodges it and then proceeds to land an advanced Conqueror's haki punch. It is destructive enough to completely pulverize Gyutaro's upper half, but Luffy doesn't do that. He stops right before permanently ending Gyutaro's existence. You know how demons remember their pasts when they are about to lose their life? The same thing happens here. The near-death experience actually makes Gyutaro remember what matters. You see, Luffy doesn't have to decapitate them to make them remember their past lives. All he needs to do is knock some sense into them. And I mean literally. Plus, since both Gyutaro and Daki share an almost psychic connection, once Gyutaro remembers everything, Daki would remember too. Yes, you guys thought it would be a slaughter, but Luffy is just out here being an unintentional therapist. Alright, next we have Kaigaku. But before we talk about this, did you know that the breathing styles don't actually summon the elements they are based on? Like, water breathing doesn't summon water, it's just that the individual moves like water. Yes, Kaigaku can use thunder breathing on Luffy, but what if there is a lightning strike and Luffy literally grabs that lightning right in front of Kaigaku? It'll be Kaigaku's thunder breathing versus actual thunder. Who would win? I'm not sure, but we'll definitely have some crispy and roasted demon for Luffy to savor. Let's hope he doesn't actually eat Kaigaku though. I mean, yes, Luffy is strong, but is he strong enough to defeat bowel movements? Ugh, I don't think so. Alright, next we have Gyoko. Yes, I know none of you like Gyoko, so let's just get rid of him ASAP. Let's be honest, Luffy won't even pretend to care. He would smash all of Gyoko's vases, maybe stuff him into one of them, and then throw it high up in the air. So high that Gyoko goes beyond the stratosphere and reaches a point where it's impossible to avoid sunlight. He disintegrates. How? Isn't he inside a vase? Well, the vase is a part of him. Okay, then we have Hantengu. When Luffy comes across Hantengu acting like a wuss, he tells him to stop acting like a wuss and walks away. This is where Huntango has an epic emotional breakdown. All of his personalities pull up to Luffy, but it's funny. All Luffy does is use Conqueror's Haki. Since Huntango himself is the manifestation of cowardice, he crumbles at the first sensation of Luffy's kingly aura. And because he himself is knocked out, the others fall with him. There's also Nakime, but you and I both know that Luffy would never hurt a little girl. So how about we move on to the top 3 Upper Moon? Starting with Akaza, this would be Luffy's first actual fight. But it's still going to be like a random martial artist fighting the heavyweight champion of the world. Akaza is a master of hand-to-hand combat? Yes, but how will he fare against Luffy's armament haki? How would he fare against Gear 2nd? What about Gear 4th? What about Snake Man? Yeah, let's go with that. Snake Man seems like a good opponent for Akaza. Akaza's destructive shockwaves in cohesion with his martial arts would definitely confuse Luffy at first, but with Snake Man, he can quite literally punch Akaza non-stop from every blind spot. Look, I respect Akaza, but a random martial artist isn't winning against the heavyweight champion. It's against the laws of physics. The same thing would happen again. After getting absolutely trolled by Snake Man, Akaza would start remembering his previous life. He would remember everything and volunteer to off himself, but with a smile on his face. Next, we have Doma. Believe me, I hear you guys. You want Luffy to completely and utterly destroy this guy? Well, let's do that. Doma's blood demon art is cryokinesis. Luffy obviously didn't do well against Aokiji's ice, but back then he couldn't even use Gear 2nd, let alone Haki. This Luffy is different. He can use all 3 advanced forms of Haki. He has the Devil Fruit Awakening, and he is quite literally Joy Boy. You bet if there is someone who is going to make Doma feel some emotions, it's Luffy. When Luffy walks into the room, he sees Doma devouring innocent girls. Luffy does not take kindly to it. He transforms into Snake Man and tries to punch him in the gut. Doma isn't particularly wary of the punch, but before it even reaches him, Doma experiences his entire stomach getting destroyed. It's like his very soul is getting boiled. That's right, folks. This is advanced Conqueror's Haki we're talking about. Doma quickly freezes Luffy's hands to restrict him, but Luffy uses armament haki and simply shrugs off the ice. From there on out, it's not a fight. Heck, it's not even a massacre. It's just a goofy guy taking out a half-empty bag of trash. Finally, we have Kokushibo, the strongest Upper Moon. Now, Kokushibo is actually a tricky opponent for Luffy. He uses moon breathing, and his blood demon art allows him to create and manipulate dozens of sharp blades from his flesh. Sharp objects have always been Luffy's weakness, so let's see how this one goes. But here's something interesting. Kokushibo can immediately sense that Luffy is the same kind of breed as Yoriichi, except Luffy is like 100 times stronger. Why? It's because Luffy, for what it's worth, is the sun god. The sun is the natural enemy of the demons. The reason Yoriichi was such a menace is also because he could use sun breathing. So how would Kokushibo go about dealing with a guy like him? First, he would feel paralyzed. Luffy's presence would reignite all the PTSD he has been holding on to all his life. And then, when he finally musters up enough courage to plunge forward and fight, Luffy can just literally do whatever Haki-induced attack he wants and finish Kokushibo. It's really that simple. Who knows, maybe even Conqueror's Haki alone would be enough for Kokushibo. He is afraid and jealous of the sun after all. So, what do you think? What would a fight between Luffy and the 12 Demon Moons look like? Share your wild guesses, guys. Let's continue this what-if scenario in the comments section.